Hello, I'm Betty Bley, a Vandoren Artist-Clinician Clarinetist and music educator. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to practice your instrument efficiently and effectively. Having the right tools, the right environment, and a practice routine will help you make the most progress during your practice sessions. So why is consistent daily practice important? Well, first off, our embouchure muscles aren't used for anything else in life the way they are used for playing clarinet. So it's really important that we train those muscles to go into the correct position for playing our instrument, and that has to happen on a daily basis or those muscles forget. The next thing is finger dexterity. So every day that you don't play your instrument, your finger dexterity doesn't do well and you have to recover from it. So consistent daily practice is really, really important. The next reason why we need to practice every day is our air support. So training our air support to play properly with a wind instrument requires consistent daily work. It's just like training for an athletic event. And then the last thing is articulation. So the way that we tongue is very unique to this instrument, and we don't do anything that way in life that's similar. So it's really important that we keep our articulation consistent and clean, and you have to practice every day in order to be able to do that. So you have a really busy schedule with academics and lots of activities. How can you fit practice time into your daily routine? Well, practice can actually be a great break from studying. So if you're really buried in academics and feeling overwhelmed, taking a maybe 20-minute break and practicing for a little while uses a different part of your brain, and that can really help you de-stress, and it can make you more productive afterward. 15 minutes of focused practice time is better than nothing. So if you can't fit in the ideal 45 minutes or more in one block, you could split your practice time into maybe two 15 or 20-minute blocks instead of doing a whole 45 minutes at one time. But really, ideally, 45 minutes in one block is better than splitting it up, but if you don't have the time, you have to do what you have to do. Plan for your practice time by putting it in your calendar every day and be disciplined about following through on it. You could try something like printing out a calendar for practice time and add a sticker every time you practice, and then you can look up on your wall and see your great progress with all the stickers for practicing every day. It's also a good idea to set a timer for each part of your practice. That way, when the timer goes off, you go back to doing whatever you have to do and you don't waste extra time. One really important thing is marking your music. So studying your part and adding markings in advance of your actual practice time will really help you. Marking in fingerings and accidentals and breath marks and things like that will save you time during your practice session. So if you have some downtime, maybe when you're watching TV or something, you can just look through your music and add those markings. And then when you sit down to practice with your instrument, you'll be all ready to go. During your practice, if you make mistakes, be sure to mark your music so you don't repeat those. For example, if you miss an accidental carrying through a measure or something from the key signature, you want to mark that so you don't make the same mistake again. Also, you can use your downtime when you're riding in a car or when you're watching TV or taking a break or a rest period to listen to professional recordings of the music that you're learning. And that will really help get the music in your mind, and then you'll know what it's supposed to sound like. So when you practice, you can work toward achieving that same type of sound that you hear with the professional recordings. During your practice time, you want to make sure you stay mindful. So keep your focus on the quality of your sound and avoid all kinds of distractions. You need to practice in a quiet space with no interruptions, so no TV or other noises. Remove tempting distractions from the area where you're practicing. Make sure if you don't need your cell phone, you put that out of the room where you're practicing. But if you are going to use it for things like tuning or metronome, make sure you put it on Do Not Disturb so it doesn't distract you. And just restrict your use of it during your practice time to things related to your practice, like maybe recording yourself or listening to the metronome or checking your pitch with your tuner. Also, make sure that your family members know about your practice time and respect your practice time so they don't disrupt you while you're practicing. Having the right tools during your practice session, having them available and organized and at the ready is really important. So what do you need during your practice? You need a metronome, you need a pencil, you need a tuner, you need working reeds, you need good light, and you need a good chair that doesn't have arms or wheels and that will enable you to have good posture while you're playing. You need a sturdy music stand, and you need to keep your music organized and easy to find. It's helpful if you can develop and stick to a practice routine. I always like to start with warm-ups, and warm-ups should accomplish 3 things. They should focus your tone, your technique, and your tonguing so that all 3 of those things are working to your best. With your tone, that requires good embouchure, good air support, a good working reed, and with your finger technique, that requires good hand position and good finger dexterity. And then with your articulation, you want to make sure that you're keeping your tongue up in that T position and just moving the tip of your tongue and not your entire tongue. So your warm-up should go through all 3 of those things: tone, technique, and tonguing. Once you've finished your warm-ups, then you should work on scale studies. And that can include your major scales, perhaps minor scales as well, and definitely your chromatic scale. And after that, you can have a different goal for each of your practice sessions. Maybe you have a seating test that you're preparing for, or maybe you're preparing for a solo performance. So those can be different goals that you focus on during the working part of your practice session, which is after you've finished your warm-ups and your scale studies. It's also a good idea to work on sight reading during your practice, so playing some music that's unfamiliar to you. Then work on your band or orchestra repertoire, and finally end your practice session with doing some things that are more fun for you, like duets, something really fun to play that you've been looking forward to, and maybe some chamber music. There are some practice techniques that will help you become more efficient at your practice and make the most of the limited time that you have for practice. One way is to take a problem spot in your music and vary the rhythms. So if it begins as even 8th notes, you can swing the rhythm, so you go long, short, long, short, long, short, and then flip the rhythm after you've gone through that about 10 or 12 times and go short, long, short, long, short, long, and then play it evenly as it is originally marked, and you'll find that it works much better. Another way of practicing would be to vary the articulations. So if something is all tongued and you're finding it difficult, you can practice it by slurring to, tonguing to, and then tonguing to, slurring to, and then put it back the way it was written, and I think you'll find it's easier. You can also work backwards in sections, taking individual runs, starting with the last note and then adding the note before and working backwards. And then when you put it regular forwards, I think you'll find that it's much easier. Another important practice technique is to record yourself and to critique your recording. So it's very helpful. We can hear lots of different aspects of our tone when we record ourselves and play it back, and that will help you isolate what you need to work on the most. The last practice technique is to play along with professional recordings or an app like Smart Music. Sometimes playing along with an accompaniment is very helpful because it forces you to stay in time and it allows you to hear what else is going on behind you when you're playing your part. Think about all the little details as well as the big picture when you're practicing. So within phrases, focus on the micro details like transitions. Make sure those are smooth and fluid motions from note to note. Remember to think about articulations. Make sure you're playing what's written correctly, clean and clearly. With your rhythm, make sure that you're counting correctly and staying in time. With your dynamics, make sure you're maximizing the contrasts and playing the dynamics that are marked on the page. Remember, accents need to stand out as different and stronger beginnings than regular notes. Intonation is really important. Make sure you mark problem notes in your music so you know what you need to do to adjust or use different fingerings. Also, marking fingerings in your music like right or left or other specific fingerings is really important. That will save you time while you're practicing. And last, identifying tempo changes. So if something speeds up with an accelerando or slows down with a retardando, make sure you do those things. You also need to think about the macro details, so the bigger picture for the entire piece. It's really helpful if you can develop a story that the piece makes you think of when you hear it, and try to convey that story to your audience when you're playing it. Knowing the emotional roadmap for your piece and making it come alive will also make your performance much more effective. I hope I've given you some helpful new ideas on how to practice. The most important thing is to practice every single day. Be mindful during your practice, and your musical skills will most certainly improve. Enjoy playing your instrument, and best of luck to you.